if you're a partner with someone who just had a baby, I just want to tell you that you're seen and you're heard and that your experience is valid. And just because it doesn't compare to that of the mother doesn't mean that it isn't a real thing and that how you feel actually does matter.
Welcome to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, where we empower women with the latest insights and advice on holistic health. From cutting edge medical research to practical wellness tips, our mission is to help you thrive at every stage of life. Join us as we explore topics ranging from hormonal balance and reproductive health to nutrition and mental well-being. Whether you're seeking solutions for a specific health concern or simply want to enhance your overall wellness, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey to better health together. This is the Advanced Women's Health Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. My name is Dr. Heather Alford. I am one of the naturopathic doctors at our Advanced Women's Health Brooklyn location, and I am very excited about this podcast episode today. We are joined here with a very special guest who may be a little bit biased, but I'm definitely a big fan of. We're here with my husband, Peter. So why don't you introduce yourself, Peter? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Peter. I am a registered nurse. I actually work in the intensive care unit here in Newmarket, and I've worked there for around 6 years now. And I'm a new dad.
Yeah, if you're watching the video recording of this, you're going to see that I have our little 3-month-old daughter strapped to me right now. But today we're going to actually be talking about a topic that I love talking about. If you haven't heard it on some of our other podcast episodes with some of my other colleagues, I love talking about pregnancy and postpartum, labor delivery, and also a doula. So we're going to be talking actually about a topic that I don't think is discussed very often, and that's really the partner perspective of all of this. So obviously you as a new dad, Peter, you're going to be talking a lot about your experience going through pregnancy, labor delivery, postpartum with me, and what that has been like for you, what have been some challenges, things that have been really great or difficult, and then ways that we can kind of support other people going through that process too.
Yeah, sweet. I think just before we kind of get into it, I just kind of wanted to make two disclaimers. The first is I am not equating anything that I have experienced or I've gone through with a woman's experience. I don't think that the man experiences anything near the caliber of the woman. I don't go through 9 months of this thing growing inside me. I don't go through labor. I don't go through breastfeeding, and so I don't. I don't want anything I say to be come against that. That I'm saying that it's a harder thing for the man or for the partner at all. Um, but with that, I want to say that there is an experience that you have as a partner, and there is a legitimate uh, experience that you have and emotions that you experience that are very real. And the second caveat is there are going to be people who listen to this who their partner didn't show up and their partner wasn't a big help and their partner really only did the bare minimum. And to you, I want to say I'm sorry because I think that that they're called a partner for a reason. And so when you decide to step into having a kid with someone, it is it is two people working together. And so if you're listening to this and it's upsetting you because your partner never showed up, I want to apologize on their behalf because it is your partner's job to show up for you and for your child day after day after day. And so those are the only things I kind of wanted to start with.
Yeah, I think that's really important to talk about. But at the same time, like as we said too, your like this topic in conversation about your perspective and your experience, I think it's something that's not talked about a ton. So let's kind of start off like going through pregnancy. What was that like for you walking through pregnancy with me? What were some things that were challenging or really great? And we'll kind of go into detail about that.
Yeah, I think one, and those of you who have kids will understand this. It is a weird nebulous to think back to before the kid was born And so even though our daughter, who is almost 3 months, is only 3 months, it feels like a lifetime ago that we were doing the whole pregnancy thing for 9 months. But my experience, I think the hardest thing is the feeling of kind of uselessness for a partner as you watch your loved one go through the difficulties of pregnancy, whether it's morning sickness or just being really tired or really hungry or really sore. And so there is this feeling of uselessness, that there's nothing that I can really do. I think that's probably one of the hardest things, is watching someone you love experience such difficulty and then feeling so powerless and kind of taking that away. And so I think one of the most helpful things for me was finding the little things that I could do to help you through that. And so, whether that was making sure that you always had water beside you, to making sure that you had food. And so, doing the cooking and doing the cleaning. And we have a dog, which you might hear throughout the podcast if he decides to go a little bit bananas, but taking him on the walks, that kind of thing, even though from my experience it felt so minuscule, hearing from you during that, that was actually such a big help. I think that was one way that kind of helped deal with that feeling of powerlessness and uselessness.
Yeah, I think that's a topic that we're going to be talking about quite a bit, is just that like feeling as a partner, if you're not the one that's carrying the baby and birthing the baby and taking care of baby afterwards. Like sometimes you're kind of like, what is my role? Like, what can I actually do? But you obviously were a very involved partner and dad. So I really appreciated all the things that you did to help out. But I think one thing I want us to talk about as well, and I've discussed this on the podcast before, and I'm quite open about our experience, but we had a miscarriage before this baby. And so can you talk a little bit for you about what that felt like, even connecting with her before she was born? Because I know that's something that a lot of dads also say that they experience too. Like they have a difficult time connecting. And then maybe kind of explain like how did that change since we lost a baby before?
A few things I think, and this will be another theme that we talk about, is kind of expectations. And so I went into us having a kid with expectations of feeling connected to that kid right away. As soon as I found out you were pregnant, I expected to feel immediately connected and this overwhelming sense of love. And that wasn't at all what I experienced. And having a miscarriage on our first really, I think, had a big impact on that, because I didn't know whether we would ever meet this kid, because we didn't meet the first one. And so I felt almost like I had to distance myself just to kind of take care of myself so that I didn't get too excited. But from talking to a lot of other dads, it's a very normal experience, whether you've experienced a miscarriage or not, that you're not feeling the things that the mother feels. You don't feel the baby moving and the belly growing, and especially because it took months before you actually were showing, it was it was even harder to kind of connect the pieces that we were going to have this kid. And then I think what helped the most was when we found out the gender, really helped me connect. And I know a lot of people like the mystery, and good for you. I think for us, finding out the gender really helped me because I was able to see what my life was going to be like, knowing that it was going to be a girl. And so when I thought about the future, I could see me with a little baby girl, and that helped a lot. And then we started at nighttime, I started reading to the baby in utero, and that really helped form a connection for me because it seemed like this was a real thing. And so for me, that was really helpful, reading to her and then looking at the research behind a baby's ability, auditory ability to hear their parents. And then when they come out, to be able to understand that this baby now is used to hearing my voice in a calming manner. And so we had already formed this relationship even before she was born. And knowing that while I'm reading to her while she's inside you was really helpful for me because it was very real to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that also speaks to like the connection that you have with her now. And obviously that took a little bit of time through our pregnancy to actually like get that connection there. But what would you say to like dads who are listening, partners who are listening, who maybe are having trouble figuring out like what do I do to support my partner in pregnancy? What can I do that is actually going to be helpful? What would you kind of say to them?
Yeah, I think another thing that is going to come up often in this talk is the word intentionality. And you as a partner really need to be intentional. That may look different depending on your partner, but really for us, what that looked like is I need to be on top of looking, okay, do you need water? Do you need this? Is there something you need with this? Can I take the dog out? Can I make the meals? Can I do the grocery shopping? Do you need to just lay down? A lot of intentionally asking and doing things around the house just to take that load off of you. And then on top of that, having open communication where I'm constantly checking in or you're constantly checking in. Hey, is there something I can be doing right now? Is there something I could be doing to help you? Which, again, this is not a one size fits all. Some of you may be listening to this and go, that would drive me crazy if my partner was asking me that. And to be fair, sometimes I know that it was driving you crazy. That was how it kept going. But for me and for you, I think it was helpful because for me, I felt like, okay, if she needs something, I've already asked and she said no. So I've done everything I can do right now. Rather than sitting and waiting for you to come to me, I think is if you're a dad or a partner to someone pregnant, you need to work on being intentional and intentionally asking those things of what can I do to help you out.
Yeah, I think that topic with that conversation about being very open in communication is like very critical, not just through pregnancy, but through labor and delivery, through postpartum. And so we're going to be talking about that in like more detail, each of those steps and phases. But let's kind of talk about what the experiences was like for you going through labor and delivery. And we'll start there and then I'll ask you some more specific questions as we go.
Yeah, before that, I think the prep now it's kind of unfair because I'm a nurse and I'm a trained nurse and part of my nursing was to take an entire course on maternal child and health and going through the birthing process pre-part both during pregnancy, labor and postpartum. So I was kind of at a bit of an advantage to most partners, so I had an idea of what to expect. But on top of that, we did go and see, we went and saw a naturopath uh, to talk about, okay, what can I do as a partner to best support you? And so we talked through different acupressure points and we talked through different herbals to give. And so there was some work that we did beforehand to prepare ourselves. We did the course that the hospital here puts you through. If you want, I think it was like every Thursday night or something, where they talk through the steps of birth through the hospital. And then we went through the midwives. And so going to those midwife appointments and hearing from them, these are things to expect, these are things you can do to help, really helped prepare me for what I was going to see, what was going to happen and take place. And then I think the best preparation for helping your partner through labor is all of the time that you've been with your partner in stressful situations. Because surprise, surprise, labor and delivery, a pretty stressful situation. In fact, maybe the most stressful situation for your partner to go through, whether giving giving birth. And so having a knowledge already, because we Heather and I we've been married for 6 years now and together for 11. So we've been through some stressful events, and I know already what Heather needs during those stressful events. And so I know that she doesn't want me talking, she wants silence. And she wants Yeah, she just wants silence. She doesn't want me to go through all this guided imagery and whatever. And so again, there's no one size fits all. If I'm talking to a partner about how to support somebody in labor, I'm not saying this is how to do it, because you know your part, you know what they need. Some partners need constant encouragement. They need you to say, "You got this. You're doing this. Keep going." And some partners need just silence. They just need you to be there because they're in the zone. And so knowing your partner and what they need, and ask your partner again, open communication. Ask them prior to going in, what do you think you'll need me to be like while you're in labor? What do you think you'll need me to be? Do you need me to encourage you? Do you need me to be quiet? Do you need me to be there and just hold your hand or rub your back or hold the shower hose while you sit on the shower floor and just hose you down? We laugh because that's one thing I did. And the other thing I want to say is when you're there, I've talked to quite a few guys who are either their wife is expecting or their wife has recently given birth. And the main thing that they're worried about is, oh, you know, I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm worried about either getting stressed out or getting grossed out. And the main thing really is that this process, once your wife's in labor, it's not about you at all as the partner. Your job is to be there for them and them alone. And so if you are getting overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, if you become no longer a help but a hindrance, you need to take a step back. And so there were times when we were in the hospital, and I was getting frustrated with the situation, and you didn't even know about it until afterwards when I told you, because I would just say, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom," and I'd go to the bathroom and I'd look in the mirror and I'd take some deep breaths and remind myself, "This isn't about you. Today is not you. It's not your day. You're not the main character today. You're taking a back seat, and your job is to support." And so if you're someone who's prone to anxiety and stress and you're getting overwhelmed, take that second, whether it's step into the hallway or the bathroom or wherever, and compose yourself, because this isn't about you. And if you pass out while your wife's giving birth, the nurses are not there for you. So you may be laying on the floor for a little bit.
I want to backtrack a little bit because I think a lot of what you said about that communication piece is really important, because I want to just acknowledge that for some partners, like, you may not have been with your partner for a long time prior to giving birth. You may not know exactly what your partner wants and needs in a stressful situation. And so I think having those conversations ahead of time, as you kind of mentioned as well, is really important. And then also going through some of those things like, okay, these are like specifically helpful practical tips that you can always kind of come back to if you have no idea what else to do when your partner is in labor. So do you remember the three things that our doula/naturopathic doctor told us to kind of like come back to you every time you need it? Because you were great support in labor, and you were a little bit of a drill sergeant for me, making sure I did these things, which ended up being very helpful. But I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'll remind you if you can't remember, but do you
I
remember?
remember what one thing. Oh, yeah. You know what? I might be cheating because I have it written in my notes app. It's been 3 months. I've had other things on my mind. But yes, one thing that she taught us was, yeah, J breathing. So again, if you're the partner, it's hard because your wife is giving birth. And so sometimes she's not thinking about the things that you guys learn. And so your job is to take in everything before the baby's born and be ready to know it. And so one is J breathing. So J breathing is you take a deep breath in for 4 seconds and then you breathe out for 8 seconds. And so encouraging your partner during the laboring process to do this breathing. And so breathing with them in to the count of 4 and then out to the count of 8. And then, yeah, there were three things that she told us. Encouraging your partner. So again, this is not a one size fits all. I might have said one word of encouragement, but I knew that what you need more than anything was silence. But you may be with someone who gets discouraged. who's getting to a point where they're like, I can't keep doing this. And so encouraging your partner, not just with you can do it, but you are doing it. You are in the middle of doing this.
And I think as like the laboring person as well, it's really helpful to kind of think ahead of time what would be specific things that would be helpful for my partner to say. And so, like for me, I was like, this would be helpful if I needed encouragement to be like, you've done harder things than this before. Like I was like, specifically, my naturopathic boards exams was the hardest thing I ever did. You can tell me that, you know what, you got through your boards exams, you can birth this baby. But obviously that's going to come back to you. And like for other people working through those guided imagery things or being like, hey, you're getting to the peak, you're walking up the peak. Okay, you're going to come back down, or you can do anything for 1 minute through this contraction. Like think of those things ahead of time as well and be like, hey, these would be supportive and encouraging things if you said this to me during labor. So I think that's helpful to think about ahead of time too.
A friend of ours that just recently gave birth, she had said what helped her was the reminder that, you know what, you can go through anything for a minute. And so saying something like that to remind your partner, like, you can do this. So encourage your partner was one. Guided imagery. Again, this isn't for everyone. We didn't use this. But there are different guided imageries that you can, again, talk to your partner beforehand. So whether it's waves of the ocean. So each contraction is this wave crashing, but it will come back. Or whether it's a roller coaster, or whatever it is. So talking your partner through that so that their mind is kind of preoccupied during the contraction. They're able to picture something that actually relates to what they're feeling. Again, not for everyone. It wasn't for us, but for some people, this has been really helpful. And then keeping you moving. Now, this is something that I did do. Is you need to get your partner walking because labor is only going to progress if your partner is moving. And so I can't count how many times I told Heather, get up, it's time to go for a walk. And we went for a walk around the birthing unit, walk around the room even, but get your partner moving. Get them motivated. Say, you can do this. Let's get up and move. And again, there are times during the birthing process where your partner can't get up and they have to just lay there. But when they don't have to, when you're in early labor, get them up, get them moving, and walk with them.
Yeah, you're very good at that to the point I was like mad at you about it. I don't know, but our doula NG had said like every 20 minutes change position. So it doesn't have to just be walking. That can be like on the birthing ball, on hands and knees. Like, yeah, just kind of switching things up so that baby continues to progress and move and all of that. So yeah, you were very good at that to a fault almost. I didn't love you for that and that, but I know it helped baby progress. So it was good.
Then the only other thing I can think about is counter pressure, and this is more something easier shown than spoken about. But even prior to labor, in the latter days of pregnancy, um, I know for you it was like your back and your hips that you would lay on all fours, and I'd just be pushing down to get some counter pressure to help with some of the pain. I know for you that was pretty helpful, especially with some of the pain later on.
Yeah, that was definitely helpful. I want to also like speak to the fact that you and I had conversations because I'm a doula. I've been trained as a doula, and we discussed whether or not we wanted to have a doula at our birth. And you specifically were like, no, you know what? I want to do that. I want to be that, and I want to be that support for you. And so I just want to speak to the fact that not every partner wants that. And so there's going to be people listening that they're like, my partner is not interested in learning all of these things, acupressure points, homeopathics, like herbals, things that can be helpful in labor and delivery. And not every partner is going to want to do that. And so I think it's really valid to also say and realize that having a doula can be a really, really helpful thing. So obviously, like I trained you and we had other healthcare professionals that were like training you in those things to help support me. But if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, yeah, I want that support, like there are some wonderful doulas out there. Feel free to connect with any of us practitioners as well. And we can kind of discuss like what that looks like. And a lot of times, even with my patients, even though I don't attend a lot of births as a doula, I specifically will walk through some of those things with my patients ahead of time and even encourage their partners to come in and teach them some of those techniques ahead of time because those can be really powerful and valuable. And then also having a specific doula or a specific support person that's going to do those things for you can make a world of a difference through the birthing process.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is, again, as I said, kind of during the pregnancy part, being intentional during labor and delivery as a partner is very important to check in. What do you need? Some more water? Do you need me to go and get you some ice chips or order the food or all those things? And on top of that, if your partner is a little bit less outspoken, then you need to know the birth plan going in and be prepared to fight for it. The beauty is we went through midwives, and so for the most part, they knew the birth plan. But I'm a nurse. I work for the hospital. I know how the hospital can be, and it can be pushy. And so, as a partner, if you know that there's something that your wife or whatever doesn't want, then you should be speaking up and say, no, that's not part of our plan. We don't want this. Because your partner is giving birth. They have other things that they're thinking about. They may not have the mental faculties to have a disagreement with a nurse or a pushy doctor or whatever.
Yeah, I think that also leads really well into both like talking about a birth plan, but this is something that we talked about in the postpartum episode as well, is having a postpartum plan. So that was something that I had kind of put together ahead of time. I remember printing out all the documents for you. I'm very type A. I'm very like organized in that way. But it is helpful to kind of think about, okay, what are some things that I want or don't want, even in the postpartum setting? And then having your partner be that support and advocate for you as well for postpartum. So with that being said, tell me a little bit. We've had a lot of things that have kind of come up, and I know that you've had a lot of things come up in the postpartum period. So walk me through kind of what that's been like for you and how you felt through it.
I will say, and for those who have kids, I'm sure everyone will say amen to this, but having a kid is a lot is a lot. This is a decision that will change the rest of your life. And so that is so tangible the second that you leave the hospital and you go home. And so I think something that I didn't expect as much for myself was I'm going to say the emotional toll, we'll say, and I'll get into kind of what I mean by that, of being a dad and having a little girl. And so there were a couple of times that I had a bit of a meltdown, whether it was because at the beginning, really, it was that Ellie, which is our daughter's name, would be inconsolable, and all she wanted was milk. And I remember feeling so useless because I can't provide her most basic need. Again, because we had decided to go solely breast milk and solely nursing. And so with that came that I as the partner just felt so useless because I couldn't provide the most basic need. And then feeling even more so because most of the time when I held her, she would get hungry. And so I was dealing with her crying, and there was very little that I could do about it because I can't feed her. And so for me, that was really hard. And it took some time to get used to, you know what? I'm playing a supporting role and learning that the little things that I could do, just like we said when we talked about pregnancy, the little things that I could do to help you and her weren't as little as I thought they were. They were a big help. And so again, having that open dialogue and open communication with your partner of, hey, what can I do to be helping and supporting? And do you need me to take her so that you can nap? And and then trying to figure out, and I laugh because I talked to a bunch of different dad friends whose wife solely breastfed, and a lot of them are like, yeah, you have to find different techniques to get the baby to settle because you can't just feed them. You have to figure out, oh, I gotta rock her this way or bounce her that way. And so getting creative in how to settle and get her to sleep without just giving her milk, unless of course she was legitimately hungry, and then not just bring her in and get her fed. But I think those are kind of the two main difficulties, is this feeling of, again, uselessness, because I can't provide the most basic need that my baby has, and then a feeling of, I want to say, discouragement, because as the dad, you spend so much time with the baby upset, and you don't often get to spend time with the baby in its most content place, which is being fed. And things that helped me were just knowing that there were little things that I could do to help you and her, whether it's taking her for an hour so that you could take a nap, or fixing breakfast or fixing dinner or fixing lunch so that you had food to eat while you're, laying on the couch recovering and healing.
Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Advanced Women's Health. If you are interested in diving in deeper to your health, if you are finally ready to feel like yourself, and you are finally over hearing everything's normal, everything's fine, and you want a deeper dive into your healthcare, then we are here to help you. We are currently helping patients in British Columbia and Ontario, Canada. But don't worry, if you're in another province, still reach out, get added to the wait list as we expand coast to coast. We cannot wait to work with you. Check out the show notes for more information on how to get started.
Yeah, I think all of those things were definitely really helpful of you kind of doing some of those little things. And we'll kind of get into like what that communication looks like of talking about those expectations with partners. But I want to talk a bit about like how it feels mental health wise for you as a new dad. Like as the person that has not given birth, I think there's a lot of times that we talk about the person who has given birth or the mom and their experience of mental health and a lot with midwives, especially, they check in a lot, being like, how's your mood? Checking in about potentially postpartum depression, or as we talked about in the postpartum episode, like how common postpartum anxiety is. But I've really not seen a lot of literature, and I've not had heard a lot of conversation about what is the mental health status of the person who's not given birth. What is that mental health status like for the dad in this situation? So I know for you, you've had quite a bit of experiences with that. So can you talk a little bit on like how you felt, even mental health wise, or things that have kind of surprised you and have been challenging since we've had our daughter?
Yeah, I think the difficulty stepping into this conversation and trying to navigate what I'll call maybe landmines is that as the dad, a lot of your feelings you yourself kind of don't value and validate, because there were times that I found it really hard or really stressful. And I would feel bad that I felt that way, because I know I'm not the one who just birthed this. I didn't birth Ellie. I didn't go through labor. I'm not feeding her and dealing with the difficulties of breastfeeding, and I'm not healing from the trauma of delivery. And so a lot of it was feeling that I shouldn't feel, and that it was wrong that I felt like it was hard, or felt discouraged. Because again, I think maybe that's part of why there's no literature, because I agree that it is very small in comparison to what the mom goes through. But again, there is an experience there. And for us to not validate that, I think makes it worse. And I think that's why in my head it became worse, because I kept thinking, I would feel anxious about it, about her, whether it was her growth or her not peeing enough or pooping enough or whatever it is. And then feeling like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way because I'm not the mom. And I'm struggling because she keeps screaming every time I hold her. But I'm not also dealing with healing from scar tissue and all this. And if you're a partner with someone who just had a baby, I just want to tell you that you're seen and you're heard, and that your experience is valid. And just because it doesn't compare to that of the mother doesn't mean that it isn't a real thing, and that how you feel actually does matter. And so I think I had to come to a place where I accepted that it was okay that I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And so I can tangibly remember feeling like it was hard because at first I was doing a lot of the diaper changes because I wanted to do that. And every time I did, she would just scream because most newborn babies don't like to be naked. And so she would just scream and scream and scream. And it seemed like every time I had her, she was screaming. And that started to wear on me because I started to feel like, oh, maybe there's something wrong. Like maybe I don't have a connection with her because I can't calm her down like her mom can. And then having those open conversations with you of this is how I'm feeling right now. And then having you validate that you understood how I was feeling, but then showing me ways in which I have connected with her was really helpful.
Yeah, I think that again, that comes back to a lot of that communication that you need to have throughout pregnancy, labor, delivery, postpartum. And one thing that I tell a lot of moms or tell a lot of my patients as well is that as like biologically, physiologically, we have a lot of different hormonal changes that actually can be really beneficial in terms of protecting us against things like postpartum depression or mood changes, things like that. Obviously, there are a lot of hormonal shifts that predispose and can affect and increase that chance of you actually having some of those mood changes. But if you're breastfeeding, especially, you've got a lot of oxytocin that you're getting every single time that you are feeding your baby and you're having that letdown. And on a whole other conversation, there's other mood changes that can happen along with breastfeeding, and that's something that we can definitely talk about in another episode. But there are things that can be very protective, and so I remember because we left the hospital really early with her. I remember I was going home, and you were just like, "I'm just exhausted," and I was like, "I'm on a birth high. Like I've got so much adrenaline going," and that for me was really protective. And so obviously that's not everybody's experience, but there is this physiological thing that is a little bit different about the person that's given birth, that they do have some protective mechanisms in place that can help with a lot of that fatigue, a lot of those things that you're feeling, where your partner doesn't have that. So a lot of times that fatigue is going to feel really different for your partner because they don't have all of that oxytocin that's flowing through them in the same way if you especially are breastfeeding. And so that was one thing that I wanted to also like validate for you, being like, yeah, of course you're tired. Like you don't have all of those things in place. But that was something that we talked about a lot. And something that I think was really beneficial that we did was checking in with each other. Because again, this is a partnership. It's like I did give birth, yes, but we're both in this together. You were helping me, you were helping her. Like we are in this together. And so we're going to be in a better place if you're also in a better place. So there were times where you weren't doing great or I wasn't doing great. And we were constantly checking in with each other, being like, okay, what do you need today? What do you need in this hour? Do you need a nap? Do you need a snack? Do you need a meal? Do you need some more water? And also doing that for you, I think was a really helpful thing that we did together, because when you were in a better regulated place, like you were way better at regulating her, you were able to show up for me. And so making sure that you were cared for as well, like that was an important thing I think that we did. And I'm grateful that we did that.
The main thing, yeah, is that you and your partner need to be hot tea. And so something that I really appreciated was that there was never a time that either you or I compared where we were at in a negative way. And so it wasn't a, well, why are you tired? I slept 5 hours and you slept four. It was more a, how can I help you in this time? And so a lot of the conversation was, what do you need? Okay, you need more sleep? Give it to me and you go take a nap. And yeah, I think that again, as you said, it's a partnership. And so checking in on each other and then giving the other person what they need so that they can show up better, I think was the key to kind of getting us where we are. And then on another note, I just wanted to kind of share that it is it is very normal, especially for those for husbands having babies, or partners who are men having babies, to feel stressed and to have a level of anxiety with bringing home this baby. Because as I say, there's a million and one parenting books, but none of them that kind of show you a step by step. Okay, you get home day one, here's what to do. And so it is normal. And as I walk through, a lot of friends of ours are having kids right now, and walking the husbands through what it looks like postpartum, the main thing is telling them it is normal for you to feel stressed, for you to feel out of your league and unprepared. I think that our parents, that's how they felt too. And so that's normal. Now, what can we do to move forward? And a lot of it is just taking time and then taking things one day at a time. And so, yeah, I think what was helpful for both of us was that checking in. How are you doing mentally, physically? What do you need? And then helping as best we can to provide that need for each other, while also taking care of Ellie and making sure that her needs are supported, whether it's sleep or eat or changing.
Yeah, I also want to just speak to the person who has given birth and maybe you're feeling a lot of partner resentment, because that is something that can definitely come up where you are doing nighttime feedings or you are not sleeping a lot or maybe the baby only needs you or wants you, and there can be that resentment that also comes up towards your partner of being like, why can't you just feed them? Like, I wish that you could feed them, or I wish that you could be getting up with them, but they just need me. Or like, can you just have them for a few hours? I just need to rest. I just need to sleep. And so that's also a very real experience as well. But I think that's why it's really helpful to have conversations ahead of time, being like, okay, how do we want to, or how do you think that we can handle the sleep deprivation? Like talking about like, how do you handle sleep deprivation? How do I handle sleep deprivation? How can we kind of set up strategies that's going to help us ahead of time for that? Or how do we want to do people visiting? I know that we had a conversation ahead of time where like you are a lot more extroverted than I am. And so there's times where I was like, I need you to like play bouncer essentially. Like if I feel like I'm done with visitors, I need you to be the one that kicks them out. Having some of those conversations ahead of time can be really helpful and really powerful, because when you're sleep deprived and you have this new baby who's screaming and or like there's just a lot of things going on, it's hard for you to sit down and have those conversations with your partner. And so having those things and talking about those things ahead of time can be a really helpful thing. Were there other like things that we talked about ahead of time that you remember that kind of like set us up well for postpartum?
I don't know, because I feel like we had a lot of discussions before we had her about how we thought things would go, which is helpful. And then we had her, and I think a lot of those things went out the window. And so by that I mean we had talked about, postpartum. We want to spend days at home. We want to relax. We want to enjoy our time. We don't want to jump out right away, so that you can heal, so that baby gets used to us and all of that. And then we had her, and we both felt pretty good, and especially you. There was of course some pain that you were experiencing, and that, but we didn't really stop. And so we had these conversations about taking it easy and relaxing, and then I let you kind of set and dictate how things went after she was born, and you set the pace, and we went at a pretty fast pace at meeting people and seeing people and introducing them to her. And we were just so excited to have her that we want the world to meet her. And so again, holding those conversations loosely, but then as the partner going into postpartum and realizing, okay, as I said about labor, it's not about you. Postpartum, that kind of continues, and it's about the mom's healing. And whether you've had a C-section or a natural birth, or whether you've had an epidural, or you've torn, or episiotomy, or whatever it is that you've experienced, continuing as a partner to say, you know what, you as the mom, are the one who are going to set the tone and the pace going forward at what we're doing. Because, you know, for most men, maybe you had to sleep on the couch of the hospital. I didn't because we came home, but maybe you had to do that. And that was the experience you had physically. But the mom has all this time that she needs to heal. And so allowing her the space to dictate and set boundaries of what are we going to do now that we have this baby, I think is important. And to have again that open communication of, you know what, I don't know that I want your mom coming over today because it's just going to add stress and the baby's already in a tough place. And again, as the partner, being understanding that you didn't experience half of what your wife just did, and so allowing her the freedom to dictate kind of what the next couple of days or weeks or months or whatever look like for her to heal and for her bond with baby to be figured out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like have those conversations ahead of time as well. Being like, how are we going to handle meals and food and pets and other kids? Like, what does that kind of look like? Um, but I also kind of want to talk about like what are some things that you as a dad, because I think you've done some really cool and creative things within your own community. Like, how do you feel like dads can be supportive for each other? Because there's going to be times where, and you felt like you couldn't tell me how you were feeling because you're like, I don't feel like nothing is in like pales in comparison to what you're going through. So talk a little bit about like how you've been able to kind of support other dads or how you've felt like other dads have been able to support you through this process.
Yeah, it's funny, I and again, I will say that with a caveat, there's not a lot of men who go into nursing. And so those who do are different than a lot of men. And so I will, maybe that should have been my third caveat when I started, but I would say that I'm wired slightly differently in that I have more of, that kind of caring mindset, which is why I became a nurse. And so it's a little bit different, but I think the way that I've gone about it is surround myself with other men who are either having babies, have had babies, and then talking with them through their experiences. And again, as you said, there's not a ton of research. Well, I'll tell you, there's not a lot of men who talk about their experience again because they feel like it's not as valid as their wives. And so, I mean, one thing I've done is started in classic, started the group chat, and I don't plan on starting a podcast. What's another guy's podcast? Not needed. Um, but starting a group chat with other dads just to talk about, hey, what are you guys struggling with right now with your kids? What has been a win that you've had this week? Just a place for us to encourage each other and to see kind of where we're at and a place where we get to discuss it. And so, I see all these moms groups that are hiking or going for walks around. There's a trail near our house. So all these moms groups go walking there. And that's great. And that's beautiful. But I'd love to start my own little, a dad's walk around like there is in that movie, What to Expect When You're Expecting. But I love that because I think that if you're a mom and you're wanting your partner to step up, that's, I think, the kind of community that they need is other men who are fathers, not just showing them a way, but teaching them the way and talking them through it and being there for them. Because as you said, it's hard. It's hard as the husband to talk about the difficulties of being a partner when you see that your wife is, you know, still bleeding and still in a lot of pain and moving at a snail's pace to get off the couch because there's so much pain. And here you are thinking, well, I'm having a hard day because my baby's screaming at me. But who can I say that to? Well, having other fathers to chat with and said, hey, I had a really hard time because my baby just wouldn't settle for me, and I had to keep bringing her to her mom. And then having other guys validate, oh yeah, I remember going through that, and that was hard for me, and I understand what that experience is like.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love that your group chat was such a cute name too. I don't know if you want to say it, but
Oh
um,
yeah. The group chat's called it. Well, I thought it was clever, but whatever. Unlimited data. It should always be available for our kids.
I think that's so cute. Okay, just wrapping up a little bit. I just want you to kind of share what would be the one takeaway or big thing that you would want anybody who's listening, either this maybe somebody that is expecting is going to be sending this to their partner, or maybe this is like a dad who's listening. What do you kind of want them to know? Like, what's one of the big things that you learned through this whole experience of supporting through pregnancy, labor, delivery, postpartum, that you want people to take away from this?
I want to talk to different people, and so the first I want to say to the uninvolved, you need to step it up. I think that if you're a partner, and I say partner rather than dad because it's not necessarily always a man, but if you're a partner to someone who's had a kid and you think your only job is to go to work and bring home a paycheck, I think you're doing the bare minimum. And I understand that that historically may have been the case, but let's change that because that is the bare minimum that you can do for your family is providing financially. Your job is also to be there physically and emotionally and mentally. And so if your partner sent this to you and you're uninvolved and you think that your only job is to provide money, you need to step it up. And if for your wife's sake or for your kids' sake, because if you want a relationship with them, it starts, I'm going to say, even before day one. It starts the second that that thing is inside. It is your job to be there and support in whatever way that and means that they need. And then I want to say to the new dads who are going to be dads or just became dads and are stressed and anxious and scared. I'm gonna say what I actually yesterday was chatting with a friend who just had a baby 4 days ago, and he was stressed and he's saying, the baby all he wants to do is eat all day and there's nothing I can do. So if that's you, I want to say this too shall pass. Your baby is going to change every day, and something that we remind each other every day is that this is not the new norm. Every time Ellie, if she wakes up at 5 a.m. and she wants to stay up the rest of the day, we tend to worry, oh no, is this the new norm? Well, no. Each day is a new day. And so take it as it comes. And so don't take it as the new norm and know that this too shall pass. You will get through this and you'll move on to the next season. And there are very few seasons in this kid's life that will be permanent. There's so much growth and development that happens with a newborn that change is going to come inevitably. So take a deep breath. You will move forward. And then to the dad who's struggling because they feel unseen and unheard and feel like their feelings aren't valid, I want to say that you're seen and that you're heard and that your feelings are valid. And whether your partner acknowledges them or not, and I can understand that you've gone through labor and gone through delivery, and the last thing you want to hear is your husband complaining about something that seems so minute compared to the thing that you're having. But their experience is still valid, and so I want to say to you, you're hurt, and I understand, and I can count how many times that fatherhood is not an easy thing, and it comes with different challenges than being a mom. And again, I'm not comparing them, but it comes with different challenges that are very real. And so I want you to be encouraged that your job is to do the best you can and to give everything you can to your wife and to your kid and to be there and to be intentional and to have that open communication. And again, maybe the same thing that this too shall pass and you will move forward and you'll move to the next thing. But yeah, and again, I know you said one thing. To all three, I would say find a community of dads that you can lean on, that you can talk to, that you can open up to, that you can encourage and have them encourage you so that you don't feel alone, and you don't feel like you're the only one experiencing what you're experiencing. Because as different as parenthood feels for everyone, there are some commonalities, like newborn stress, like my kid hasn't pooped in 3 days. What am I gonna do? Or my kid won't settle for me. What am I gonna do? Or my kid just lives on the breast and all they want is to drink all day. Like those are some pretty common things. And so having people to talk to who are like, oh yeah, we've been through that and now we've moved past it. Just to encourage you that again, this too shall pass.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, if you've been around the advanced women's health community at all, we know that like so much of what we believe is that healing happens in community. And so that goes for dads being connected with each other, that goes for moms being connected with each other. And also as any parent, just making sure that you are also in a really good and regulated place. Seeing your healthcare practitioners that are going to support you to do that helps you to be better for your kid, helps you to be better for your partner as well. So
Yeah, just one more thing I wanted to say is you need to have, and this is for both the mom and dad, or the partner and the mom, you need to have a lot of grace for yourself. And that's something that I've learned is that especially for someone like me and you're very similar that we want to be the best at everything we do and we want to be perfect at what we do. And of course I want to be the best dad I can be and I want to be a perfect dad, but such a thing doesn't exist. But you need to have grace that you're going to make mistakes. And so, there was one morning that I was putting Ellie's Soother clip on and I accidentally clipped it to her skin and she was screaming and I felt terrible because I just inflicted this pain on her and she's screaming and she's inconsolable until you fed her and that's so discouraging and you feel like, oh, this affects, I'm a bad dad now. Well, no, we make mistakes. And so having grace for yourself in those times where you make a mistake, because you will, it's inevitable, whether it's that or, one time I took her for a car ride and she was inconsolably screaming. And I'm like, what is she screaming about? And I get to my destination just to find out she's completely saturated everything she's wearing with urine and she had peed so much that that's what happened. And here she was understandably upset about it. And again, I just felt so terrible. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And so here I am just like crying, holding her after I had changed her into some clean, dry clothes, just feeling so bad. Like, how could I have done this to my daughter? But again, we need to have grace for ourselves that, you know what, we're gonna make mistakes. There are gonna be things that we do that we probably shouldn't, but we're learning and we're figuring it out. This is a whole new experience. And so it is understandable. You are gonna make mistakes and you just need to move forward.
and I just want to clarify that our daughter is totally fine.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast episode today. I hope that everyone listening just takes a little bit of a sigh of relief, knowing that they're not alone in this whole parenthood experience. And again, just as we said, communicate with each other, find that community, and yeah, you're not alone, and you're doing a great job here. So, anyways, thank you so much for listening to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. And if you loved today's episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. That is how we spread this message, and that is how we are going to revolutionize healthcare in Canada for women. Have a beautiful day and be well.